And I just remember breaking down and just crying and crying and crying after I finished that fight scene. What drew me to it was Mari sir and the fact that he wanted to make this film and he thought I would be right for the character, which was, I think, the biggest opportunity that I would have ever had in my life.
Did you lose count of the number of injuries you had to sustain during this film?
I broke 3 teeth. I had a concussion. I blacked out because someone accidentally kicked me in the face. I had a really severe elbow injury on my left hand.
I'm telling you, I watched this
There
film very
was.
closely. I'm a huge fan of Mari Selvaraj's work.
I'm really, really happy to be speaking to someone who has watched the film. So this is a very interesting conversation for me to engage.
Dhruv Vikram, hi. It's so nice to see you.
It's nice to see you as well.
Congratulations on all the success of Bison. You are so good in that movie. Congrats, man.
Thank you. You watched it?
Of course, I think I'm going to sit here and chat with you 1.5 weeks after release and be like, by the way, I haven't seen your film, but I'm here to talk to you about
Yeah, I'm
your
glad. I'm really glad
work and
that you
career.
watched it.
Of course, I'm a film critic. It's my job. So listen, Kitta is like such a phenomenal character. But I feel like this question I wanted to ask Mari Selvaraj, but maybe I will in the future. But the next best thing is sitting in front of me. With this film, do you think with Bison, Mari is trying to reach the audience where they are, in the sense that make the film as approachable as possible, despite the fact that he's talking about what he wants to talk about. Like the finale is India, Pakistan, and we've cast Dhruv Vikram in this big important role. Sports ki story hai, underdog story hai. So with this film, do you think he's tried to reach the audience where they are?
I don't think that's something that he did intentionally. I think that is just the way that he wanted to tell his story. Irrespective of me being a part of it, his politics as well as the journey of this character is something that I don't think he intended to. Oh, I want this to reach everyone, so I'm going to make it as commercial and as patriotic as possible. So, people want to watch it, but they also understand my emotion and my politics. But I think it's more something that happens very naturally for him as a creator. But this is my take on it. He might say something completely different, but that's what I observed.
And that's what I'm saying. I feel like I need to ask this question to Mari Selvaraj, but again, you're the next best thing in front of me right now. Also, watching the film, because I'm such a fan of his body of work, Bison specifically feels like it is a spiritual sort of, not successor, predecessor to where Karnan begins. So it's sort of set in the same these time space. It's also set in the same location, if I'm not wrong. Thottukudi. The location of both these films is identical. How, let me rephrase this. How aware were you of Mari's politics, his stories, his films? Had you seen everything that he had made before?
I had watched everything he had made before. Before I even knew I was going to work with him, I obviously saw Pariram Perumal. And by the time we met, he was about to start Karnan. But like I've mentioned in many places before, the life that I have lived and the people that I've encountered my life are very different from the people that I was fortunate to meet on this journey. And through the time that I spent in Thoothukudi, I was able to understand what the social fabric is like over there and how it still impacts people today, till today, where it's almost very matter of fact that these things still happen. It's not even that, people talk about it as if it's a one-off thing. There are people that live with being discriminated on a daily basis up until now, no matter who they are, no matter where they're from. And these lessons are ones that I only learned after I started to work with Marisa, which was very important for the character, but I also believe that it has given me a lot of perspective as well as an individual.
He's such an important filmmaker for our times, especially for, like you said, somebody like you who's not really encountered these kind of stories, these kind of people. Similarly for me, like I think Karnan changed my life on like a very like spiritual level. He's such an important filmmaker for our time. Speaking about this character, I love how he approaches the underdog sports story, because obviously an underdog sports character has a lot of anger, but in Kitta, that anger is physically suppressed, but it also physically comes out simultaneously. There's so much contradiction in this character. How do you hold back that emotion and still let the audience feel the rage of a character like that on screen?
Hmm. I think it was a lot of input from my director. I wouldn't take too much credit for that. Somewhere along the way, I understood what he required for the character's meter to be, which initially was very new to me because I've always played men that are quite expressive with whatever they feel. And eventually, when he started toning me down, then it automatically became just muscle memory and what I was like and what I was doing, you know? Like, you're extremely quiet, reserved. Even when you're happy, you don't express it that much, which I guess after a point just became my subconscious reaction to the subject and the script.
There is so much running. Sometimes Kitta is running away from things, sometimes he's running towards things, sometimes he's just running to clear his mind. And I observed this in my review as well. Every single time you, as an actor, bring a different mania to each of the runs. They're all different. They all feel different. They all look different. Can you take us through that process of creating every running sequence as separate from each other as possible? I watched this
There
film very
was
closely. I'm a huge fan of Mari Selvaraj's work.
I'm really, really happy to be speaking to someone who has watched the film because most often reviews before the movie is released. No? So this is a very interesting conversation for me to engage in. A lot of running before the film's shoot started. So I used to run like 20 laps mornings and evenings around the ground where we used to practice, and we just used to run all the time. So running actually became, I mean, now that you ask, they say something about the runner's high, no? Where people kind of actually feel a release and feel happy, and there is some dopamine being released from your brain when you run. So when I was practicing, I would always feel extremely fresh and extremely positive after I run. And I'm so different from this character in real life, but I understand why running, it's like an escape. It's also a way to be isolated, and it's also a way to I really don't know what he was thinking when he made me run so much, okay? But I remember each run being different because already the locality that you're in and the scene that would have just finished already impact your mood in so many different ways. And we most often shot it in a very linear way. So, like for instance, when we shot the scene where I'm running in school, that was actually very challenging to shoot because it was super hot and I didn't have my shoes or my slippers on and they hadn't laid out the ground properly. So there were stones and rocks and, I got hurt and these things. But then I'm just like, okay, if I am running 20 laps around this ground right now, what am I feeling? Like, what is driving me away from wanting to have a conversation with this person? And, in that moment when you are under physical strain, then automatically your brain is able to do what it needs to do for the camera, if you know what I mean. In every scene that I'm running, there's always been enough subject matter to motivate the character to run. And since we shot it in a linear way, and since I was in that place and in that character and in his clothes, around the people that he's with, it was a lot of what the director fed me through his input and also through the surroundings that he provided me with that I'm extremely fortunate for. I don't
Aside
think I answered your question, did I?
Well, I think I would have loved to sit down with you and Mari Selvaraj together and try to break down this character of Kitta and why he comes across as different from every other underdog sports hero that we have seen, maybe perhaps with the exception of Paranjit's own Sarpata Paramarai. The way like these filmmakers use sport to create the underdog sports story while telling the story that they want to tell, and these are the little devices they use, and one of the devices that is a leitmotif in this film is the running, even in the flashback within a flashback, which is such a daring choice to have a flashback within a flashback of a younger Kitta running and then cutting to you, and then it's incredible. I really, really, and you are phenomenal as Kit. I think he just did a fabulous job casting you in this film. But do you have a larger understanding where, or have you thought about where Bison stands today in the landscape of cinema that's coming out of India right now? The importance of a film like this. Is that something you think about?
For me, the release of this film is extremely new because I feel like I won when we shot me getting the Arjuna Award because of how many matches that I had played. And we shot it, we barely choreographed anything and we shot it in really intense, raw, real ways. So, Bison releasing and that, whatever that's meant to make me feel like, I already felt when I won against Pakistan in the film, you know? So everything that's happening now, personally and on the grander scheme of things, I'm really not able to like understand and comprehend. But I'm super grateful for whatever that it is. But I think a little more time needs to go by.
Hmm.
Possibly, I would say maybe a month or more to really understand what this does in the grander scheme of things of South Indian and Indian cinema, and also personally for me. You know what I mean?
So you just said that you didn't choreograph anything. What does that mean? All those kabaddi sequences are just you playing kabaddi? How much choreography has gone into those? Because those are very intense sequences.
The way we would shoot it is that I learned all the skills and all the techniques, and sometimes we would just play, and they would have cameras around the place shooting it. Sometimes when it comes to the really important rides, like the very last one,
Hmm.
and things, then he would kind of call out on a mic, and we would like barely hear it on the ground from a distance away, and then we would just take his cues and follow. But the thing is, it was not like we stopped and set it up and choreographed it in that sense.
But it's like a dance movement, especially that final match where
Yeah.
you're when you don't know what's gonna happen, and that final in those final moments when Kita is sent into the field, it's like a. Did you lose count of the number of injuries you had to sustain during this film, or do you have a count of how many
Yes.
injuries you
I
sustained?
lost count. I have a count of how many major injuries. Do I have a count of that?
Take us
I
through some of them,
probably.
please.
Okay. Da-da-da. Also, I want to add,
Yeah.
once we shoot the match, where we just play, then whatever that has worked out well on the camera, we will set up the camera closer and try to recreate the same thing. But with every
Mm,
kabaddi sequence, there's always a 90% element of not knowing what's going to happen and just playing.
fascinating.
Yeah. So for this film, during practice, I broke my left hand, and
Like when you're wearing the thing in your left hand, is that your hand actually broken or is
no. By then,
okay?
obviously, I was new. This is in 2023 September. I broke my left
Okay.
hand, and I had about like a 10-day break, and then I went back to practice, and I was practicing with the broken hand because he was like, "There's going to be a scene where you play with a broken hand, so we want you to practice with, so you can just get into the movement, whatever." And I broke three teeth. I had a concussion. I blacked out because someone accidentally kicked me in the face. Um, I had a really severe elbow injury on my left hand, and I had a really bad injury on this thumb, on my right thumb, and both my toes and my ankle. These were the major injuries. Then there were some tier two injuries like on my neck and my lower back and my knees.
Scratches and bruises. Jesus.
Scratches and
Well,
bruises, but those were okay. But the thing is, when you play kabaddi on a mat with shoes on,
yeah.
it's much easier than playing on the bare ground because there's so much friction, and especially in the heat where your skin starts to peel off in multiple layers. So it's almost like you can look into the crust and mantle and the core of your foot. I will see like all the way. It took me a while for my feet to get used to the game. So that was actually the most painful, I would say, even worse than the broken hand.
Is this what attracted you to doing this film? There's a level of penance involved in it because you come from a very privileged background.
Mhm.
You're a rich kid. You've not experienced these things, but there's a level of penance involved for your craft, for working as hard as this, for physically injuring yourself to be able to stay true to who you are as a performer, as an artist. Is that what attracted you to Bison? That you'll really give your physical everything to it?
That is actually not what drew me to it. What drew me to it was Mari sir and the fact that he wanted to make this film and he thought I would be right for the character, which was, I think, the biggest opportunity that I would have ever had in my life, you know? All these things I was always quite nervous about, to be very honest. Not the injuries, but I knew it was an extremely violent, aggressive sport. And
Yeah.
as much as I'm being advised to not say this, I'm going to say to you, I have never played a sport in my life prior to Kabaddi. So, Kabaddi was the first sport that I learned. And it is the only other combat sport that you play in a team other than American football, which is rugby. So, I was very anxious about the whole process of starting to learn the sport and whether I would even be able to understand it. It's not something that drew me to it, but there was something at the end of the tunnel at the finish line that I didn't know exactly what it was, but my mind told me, it gave me a rough idea of what it would feel like. And I was always chasing that feeling. And I would get it in little parts every time I got my first rate correctly, or when I caught someone when I was defending, and then when I see my body change and I see my stamina get better,
It's
that's when I got,
tangible. The progress, you
yeah,
can touch the progress. You can see it.
yeah,
You can see the change
yeah.
in front of you, and I imagine that's very exciting. This film also is very violent. There's a lot of, because the setting is such. He set it in a time where violence was prevalent in these areas where he set his stories, and the violence is exhausting, and you see that exhaustion in Kitan's character because every single time he tries to get away from it, like a real life kabaddi match, life keeps pulling him back into the thing that he's trying to escape, the line that he's trying to cross. The life keeps pulling him back. So, but the violence is not heroic. It is exhausting. In most major mainstream, especially I'm going to talk about Bombay cinema, the violence you see a lot of times is heroic and it's celebratory. But this film subverts that in so many different wonderful ways. Does that feel liberating to do, to perform?
The way we shot these fight scenes also didn't allow me to feel liberated or empowered at any point. It always made me feel like I needed to escape or I needed to survive because of the nature of how these shoots would go. Like, even when we shot on the bus, it was probably just the director and the cameraman and a couple of the camera assistants, and then all of us on this moving bus that we were going up and down the Terikadu, which is that red desert, no? Where we shot, and the fight breaking out and how authentic he wanted to be and the poor goat in the bus. All of this, once that fight starts, since we shot these in extremely real ways, like the fighters that I acted with, they had to get hit by me and they also had an opportunity to hit me. So at no point did it feel heroic. Had I had a 48 frame slow mo shot where I just like walk out and I'm just like, give him a
No
nice,
angle.
yeah, that would have definitely felt heroic. And I would love to do cinemas like that as well if the story is really good. And I enjoy cinema like that. But this time, it felt like that at no point. I even mentioned in a couple of places before that when we finished the fight scene where it's almost like I'm possessed by the goat, no? We finished that fight scene and I washed myself off like my legs and my hands, but I was still covered in slush. So I couldn't sit in the car. So I had to sit in the boot of the car with the door open. And I just remember breaking down and just crying and crying and crying after I finished that fight scene. And I still have no idea why. I remember it was a really intense scene. So I know at the beginning of the day, I was very keen on pulling it off the way that I wanted to and the way that my director wanted me to. But that also translates to what he feels as a character where he wants to survive and not have these people hurt him or the people around him. You know what I mean? So as an actor and a character, I feel like that's somewhere where I was feeling the same thing. And yeah, I was just super overwhelmed and I just started sobbing. So there is no liberation or empowerment. Yeah.
I feel like the opportunity to be able to cry is liberating in and of itself. For especially for men to be able to cry is liberating because men are not allowed to cry as much as socially acceptable, quote unquote. Now that the film is out for about a week and a half at this point, internationally as well. I'm in the United States and I watched the movie here.
Is it? Which part are
I'm
you
in
in?
New York.
Oh, really? I lived in New York
Yeah, yeah.
for 2 years.
Well, if you come back, you let me know.
Yeah.
No, I'm here, and Aditi Anand is your fabulous producer. She has been so good with like getting the word out and working on this film hard. Um, have you had conversations with people, journalists like myself and other people as well, which has made you understand not just your own character, but the film also in a different light than you approached it when you were making the film. Because when you're making it, you're so close to the material, you lose objectivity.
Yeah. So I only knew the script, I think, a week before we went to shoot, and I had already been there for about 1.5 years. But my coach was also the person that the film is based on, Manati Ganesan. So
Correct.
I always imagined his struggles and everything he would do, and we shot those scenes. But Marisa was also shooting another film this entire time that no one knew about that involved
What?
Lal sir. Another film, as in another film in this film, when I'm saying Amir sir's character and Lal sir's character.
Oh, right. Oh, so the
Yeah.
parallel tracks. Okay,
The
okay. So I'm like,
parallel
what?
track.
How? Okay,
The
parallel tracks
parallel
of the
tracks, which
local
I didn't.
politics and the sports.
Yeah, and I never knew about that. Like, for instance, the scene where they try to kill Pandey Raja the first time and the car topples off the bridge. I thought that was
Yeah,
beautifully shot. It was so
yeah,
cinematic. I
yeah.
didn't know that there were going to be these aspects to the film. Or rather, I knew the story, but I didn't really know the depth of the politics that he was talking about.
That's wild.
And when I finally watched it and I was able to place myself in this extremely large and elaborate world of crime and all of that, it was like I felt extremely fortunate to be in a film like this because these actors are legendary actors. They're also directors. They're also veterans who've worked in the industry for so long. They've worked with my dad. They've known my dad since before I was even born. So all of that was something that made me feel extremely grateful to know that I'm a part of a film that is saying so much and making such an impact. Yeah.
It's fascinating to hear that because it mirrors your character's journey in the film as well. He is only focused on just trying to get out of his circumstances and play kabaddi. And on the other
Yeah,
hand, all of this is
precisely.
going on. He doesn't even know it's going on until he has to cross paths with it. And then he doesn't know what's right and wrong. Fascinating to hear that. Um,
Yeah.
well, congratulations on everything that this film has done, not just for you personally, but just as a piece of cinema that's come out of India. It's such a treat to watch Mari Selvaraj's films. When people like Paranjit are associated. And I was just so, so happy to see what you brought to the character as well. Very well done, Dhruv. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm so
We're
happy to
done?
chat with you. I think so. You want to keep talking? We can keep talking. I don't want to
No,
take too
no.
much of your time.
No, I'm curious though. How come you're in New York?
I live here now because I was in Bombay for my whole life, but last year I came here to New York and I live here now. I do my things here.
Okay.
Various
Lucky
many
you.
reasons.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
If you're coming through, you let me know.
Definitely.
And please check out my review. So I feel like you've not seen my review of the film. It's on YouTube. If you want to see it, please check it out.
Yeah, I'm gonna check it out.
All right. Thanks, Dhruv.
All right, thank you. What time is it there?
It's like 9 a.m. So we're good.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for doing this.
I'll see you around. Bye.
All right, bye.